So John, Mike, Potoula, and James are the performers. They're the ones who will be playing these games that we set up for them. And Matthew over here is the host. He's the facilitator. He's the one who announces the games, explains them to the audience, and then picks the players and says go, and then tells them when to stop. So he has a very important job. So pretty much we just want to have a little conversation here about improv. What makes good improv, what makes a good improv show, and just thoughts in general. What makes a good improv show? What makes it interesting for an audience, and how do you keep their attention? And
I say chemistry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You definitely need a connection between the people who are performing.
Absolutely.
I've seen improv shows where it's obvious that the people have never met each other. Yeah. And it's just like, I don't know. At least if you know each other, you can bring out the best in each other.
Yeah.
You know?
And you just need to make sure, since we do know each other pretty well, to stay away from our inside jokes or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
You need to keep it at things anybody can understand.
That's true.
so how do you guys play the games? Like, do you know what the games are? I mean, obviously I know the answer to this. I'm just trying to keep it. I'm just trying to push the conversation forward. Like, tell me about the structure of the show, games and everything.
Well, we put on a bunch of, it's a lot of games, different games for each act of the show. They're all a couple minutes, really short, to the point, and we try to get out, like, the best. We try to bring out the, I guess you could say, the funny in the scene, what makes it great, and put it out there in 2-3 minutes, and then be done with it and move on to the next thing.
In that structure, how important is a host?
Very important. He's a ringmaster.
Extremely.
Yeah.
He's a ringmaster.
Matt, why is it so important, Matt?
Well, being from experience of being a host, you definitely control the whole thing, and you definitely need to have chemistry with your actors and know their strengths. It's a lot of fun, but you also got to make sure the scenes keep moving and don't let them drag out too long. Otherwise, it gets really boring and the audience falls asleep on you.
We're driving motorcycles and he's directing traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't direct traffic, we're going to crash into each other.
Yeah, if we're struggling, he needs to help us.
But if he's directing traffic, we can ride
That's
the
my
motorcycle
job, yo.
pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Yes. That's called a metaphor.
To continue your metaphor, what does it look like when you crash? What is the audience going to see if
Blood.
if it isn't coordinated?
It
Nobody
can
like
either
that.
be hilarious or just terrible.
Yeah, I think when you're failing, you say, what is there to see? I think it's the exact opposite. There's nothing to see. It just kind of dies.
It's very stale.
Yeah.
How do you keep it fresh then? As performers, how do you guys, aside from you, the host, because the host has, your own duties that you have to do, but the host isn't in there in the scene. How do you guys as performers make sure that the scene doesn't get stale? How do you keep it fresh? What do you think about when you're in it?
I think sense of communication is really important because you need to listen to each other. You can't say no, and that's a main rule in improv. You cannot say no to someone because they may have a better idea than you do, and, whether or not you like the idea or not, if it's keeping the scene going and the audience is really enjoying it, then you have to really go with it.
Yeah. You have to stay in the moment of what you're doing, while at the same time trying to think 3 steps ahead in case the other person hits a block. You have to be able to just pick it up and keep going with it and make sure they stay along with
Yeah,
it.
you're like in the moment, but at the same time, you're watching yourself in a weird way.
Yeah.
Because you're aware of what's going on while having it go on. If that makes sense.
It's all about taking in what the other person is saying and doing whatever, and just putting your own thing out there that still keeps everything together.
Yeah.
And another thing we were taught is to make your partner look good too, which I think works with
Just
chemistry.
like
Because if you're trying to outdo the other person, I don't like that.
Yeah.
But then if you have a good, you have somebody throwing something back at you and you can throw it back at them, it's a nice game of catch.
The audience should be able to see the best in each performer. They should walk away and say, "Oh, I loved when James said that and he did that motion. I loved when John was acting like this and Mike was this character. And Potoula's amazing overall." But the audience should feel that each person has contributed something and wasn't just piggybacking off someone else. You should be holding to your own throughout the whole show.
Yeah. It more than most shows, well, that's not true, but it relies more than a lot of shows on really being an ensemble and working together.
Why?
Because
how is it? How is the ensemble in improv different than the ensemble in a scripted play?
I mean, in a scripted play, you know what's going to be said next. You know what the actions are. If someone makes a mistake and forgets a line or something like that, you still know the direction you have to head in. But with improv, it's completely open. So if I say one thing and I have a great idea and I hit a point where that idea runs out and I'm kind of stuck, I need to be able to make sure I can rely on the person who can say, oh, and that's why the dinosaur did this, and that's why we're running over to get the spaghetti, or something like that.
Well, most first-time actors,
Because he was hungry.
they're always like nervous of like what their line is going to be, so they're paying attention to themselves.
Yeah.
But in improv, you have to pay attention to what the other person is going to do,
Mhm.
because then it'll relate on what you're going to do next.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't pay attention just to their words as well. I'd pay attention to their actions
Mhm.
as well, because that gives you some insight about what's going on as well.
Yeah, especially in a game like Sitting, Standing, Bending.
What is
where,
that? Let's explain
it's
that.
a game where literally one person has to be standing, one person has to be sitting, one person has to be bending over. And
At all times.
At all times. And if the person who is sitting stands up, someone else has to sit down. And it gets very crazy, but you really have to be paying attention. Otherwise, you'll have two people standing, one person bending over, or two people sitting, and one person just kind of wandering around.
What prevents a game like that from slipping into absolute chaos? Because it sounds like a game like that could slip into absolute chaos. How do you keep it focused? And, like, on top of that, when you're performing, is there a character you're performing? Like, within the course of the scene, do you try to find a climax? I mean, it's a very short scene. You have 2 to 3 minutes up there to
do
create
what we're
something.
doing right now, which is like you listen 1st.
Mhm.
You know? You have to listen, and then like James said, you have to watch the person too.
Mhm.
And then
And if a person establishes a character for you when they're talking, then
Then it
you
works
are that
out.
character.
Yeah.
don't say no.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, and a lot of times you're not, even when you are up there, you're not not technically yourself. You're always playing some type of character, depending what the scene
Yes,
is. That
true.
Even if it's an aspect of yourself.
Yeah, exactly. That when cooking show, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a cooking show. Like Mike's not a chef, but
Thanks,
he's
James.
you know, he can
Whatever.
make food plenty fine,
I can make
but
cereal.
just about to say
so
cereal's
it's a
amazing.
matter of just saying, "Oh, hey, this is how chefs are," and so that's what I'm going to be. But he's still technically himself standing there.
I think, yeah, and this might sound ridiculous, but you have to like have a nice reference book in your head of what to
Yeah.
call upon.
Mhm.
So if you like read books or watch movies or just walk around and then try to click stuff, and then you could use it as ammo. You know?
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. If we know who's really good at one game, who's good at another game, and we're able to play to each other's strengths, no matter what game we're playing.